It was supposed to be the future of air travel, but for Boeing, the path forward is filled with turbulence. At the center of the storm is not just a rival like Airbus or a failed product like the 737 MAX. Instead, it's a massive crisis that reveals something far more dangerous, a shift in the market Boeing failed to anticipate, and a structural issue that could shatter public trust at 35,000 feet. While Airbus quietly seized a major market with its A321XLR, Boeing fell behind. But even worse, Boeing now finds itself under fire for a scandal hiding in plain sight. The very aircraft that once promised to be its global flagship, the 787 Dreamliner, is facing a serious structural defect, and the public was never warned. While Boeing scrambled to manage the fallout from the 737 MAX crisis,
a Lion Air Boeing 737 crashed into the sea this morning. Rescuers have located debris, but they do not expect to find any survivors.
Airbus made a bold and calculated move that would tilt the industry balance. In 2019, Airbus introduced the A321XLR, a jet that would quietly become one of the most disruptive aircrafts in recent aviation history. On the surface, it was just another member of the A320 family, but beneath the familiar frame was a game changer. The XLR, or extra long range, was a narrow-body aircraft with the capabilities of a wide-body. With a range of 4,700 nautical miles, it could fly transatlantic and even transcontinental routes traditionally dominated by larger, less efficient planes like the Boeing 767 or early 787s. For airlines, this meant massive savings: lower fuel consumption, reduced maintenance costs, and fewer empty seats to worry about on thinner routes. For passengers, it meant more direct flights and fewer layovers. The A321XLR was tailor-made for the post-pandemic travel world. Demand was shifting away from large hubs and towards point-to-point flexibility. Airlines needed jets that could go the distance but didn't require hundreds of passengers to break even. Airbus delivered exactly that. And Boeing? They had nothing in response. The shock across the aviation world wasn't just that Airbus had innovated, it was that Boeing, once seen as the industry's visionary, was flat-footed. Boeing's once reliable 757, considered the perfect mid-sized transatlantic plane, was retired in 2004. Its rumored successor, the new mid-sized aircraft, NMA, never advanced beyond PowerPoint presentations and internal debates. With the XLR racking up more than 500 orders by the time it flew its first test flight, Boeing was left watching from the sidelines. It had no product in that size and range category. While Airbus was innovating, Boeing was reacting, offering stretched versions of the 737 MAX that still couldn't match the XLR's performance. But the problem didn't stop at lost sales. Boeing's biggest threat wasn't just strategic, it was structural, and hidden inside their most advanced plane, the 787 Dreamliner. In January 2024, Boeing's internal problems exploded into public view once again. A longtime company engineer, Sam Salahpour, stepped forward with alarming allegations. In a complaint filed with the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and shared with the New York Times, Salahpour claimed that Boeing's 787 Dreamliners, over 1,000 of which were currently flying, had been built with critical structural flaws.
Every new airplane has growing pains, especially those that kind of push the edge of the envelope in technology.
According to his report, the Dreamliner's fuselage sections were not properly aligned during manufacturing. Rather than halting production, Salahpour alleged that workers were seen physically jumping on sections of the aircraft to force the parts to fit together. He described it as a factory risk, a dangerous blend of improvisation and pressure to meet deadlines. These weren't one-off mistakes, they were systemic. The structural joints that connect the composite fuselage segments were allegedly under continuous stress from the moment the planes left the factory. That stress, over time, could lead to microfractures and eventually catastrophic failure, though such damage would develop silently and invisibly through thousands of flight cycles. If true, this paints a terrifying picture: a fleet of next-generation aircraft carrying hidden defects that only worsen over time, all while passengers and airlines remain unaware.
They were one of the great survivors of the post-World War II shakedown in aircraft design and the most successful new entrant in the new jetliner market of the late 1950s.
Salahpour's warnings didn't end with the 787. He claimed similar problems existed on the Boeing 777 production line, and when he raised concerns, instead of support, he said he was reassigned to another department, a move he interpreted as retaliation for speaking up. It was a story that felt all too familiar. During the 737 MAX crisis, whistleblowers raised safety concerns about the MCAS system and software training. They were ignored until it was too late. The same pattern seemed to be emerging again. Internal warnings swept aside, engineers sidelined, and deadlines prioritized over safety. Despite Boeing's public assurances that there were no immediate risks, the FAA reportedly expressed alarm that some of the issues Salahpour mentioned were still unaddressed. Boeing has stated that the structural issues do not pose an immediate safety risk. The company emphasizes that each 787 undergoes rigorous stress testing and that internal modeling confirms the aircraft's structural integrity over time. In response, Boeing suspended 787 deliveries and initiated inspections, focusing specifically on the wing-to-fuselage joint areas. Airlines were advised to perform their own checks. Beyond Boeing's internal quality reviews, the FAA has required targeted inspections across all active Dreamliner jets. These include detailed checks of known high-stress areas, such as the forward pressure bulkhead and the wing-to-fuselage joint. These mandated inspections serve as a regulatory safeguard to identify and mitigate potential risks before they manifest in service. But Salapor's complaint had already sparked something larger, a renewed scrutiny into how much Boeing, and even the FAA, had allowed internal standards to slide, and this was only the beginning. Further investigations into the 787 program uncover multiple issues in inspections, materials, and even the pilot seats. Some employees reportedly logged checks on airframe components that were never actually performed. Titanium parts used in critical sections were found to be below industry standards, with lower strength and corrosion resistance. In some aircraft, pilot seats weren't staying locked during landing, posing a serious risk during the most critical phase of flight. Individually, each of these is alarming. Together, they paint a picture of deep-rooted flaws in Boeing's quality control culture. Even more worrying, these issues affect a plane that's supposed to serve for decades. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner was once hailed as a marvel. With over 50% of its structure made from carbon composites, it boasted better fuel efficiency, reduced weight, and higher passenger comfort, but it also had a troubled past. In 2013, the entire fleet was grounded due to exploding lithium-ion batteries. In the years since, reports of fuel leaks, electrical faults, and fuselage cracks have continued. And now, a potential long-term structural weakness threatens to undo all the good. The tragedy is that the Dreamliner has never suffered a fatal crash. It has a perfect safety record, for now. But as Salapor warns, it might only be a matter of time. Cracks don't announce themselves, and once they reach a tipping point mid-flight, it's already too late. Despite the seriousness of the whistleblower claims, the FAA has refused to ground the 787. While the FAA has not grounded the 787, it has initiated thorough audits and oversight activities. Additionally, Boeing voluntarily paused deliveries of the new 787s pending FAA approval of corrective actions. They claim that every decision must be based on technical evidence, not public pressure or online speculation. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy insisted we don't run aviation by panic. That may be true, but critics point out that this exact mindset delayed action in the 737 MAX tragedy, costing 346 lives. Behind the scenes, the FAA is in a tough position. The Dreamliner is used by dozens of major airlines. It supports thousands of flights every week. Grounding it would disrupt global travel, damage supply chains, and cost billions. But should economic convenience ever outweigh passenger safety? If the 787 is grounded, then what? Let's be clear, if it is grounded, it could upend the entire global aviation industry. Why? Because it's not just one airplane, it's the only long-haul jet that many airlines rely on. Consider, All Nippon Airways, ANA, operates 84 Dreamliners, the world's largest fleet. More than half of its international routes would collapse. United Airlines has 78 Dreamliners and 150 more on order. It's the backbone of their global expansion. American Airlines relies on the 787 for most of its transatlantic and Pacific flights. Even Hawaiian Airlines and Alaska Air use them to compete on long-haul premium routes. A grounding would cancel thousands of flights, millions of travelers would be affected. And Boeing? Its reputation would suffer a blow it may not recover from. The story took a darker turn in early 2024 when a former Boeing engineer involved in raising concerns about the 787's assembly died in what was ruled an apparent suicide. He had warned, on record, someone is going to die because of these mistakes. His death, though not officially linked to the ongoing investigations, sent shockwaves through the aviation world. Was it a coincidence, or a warning that the cost of speaking out may be more than professional? This adds another layer of unease. When employees raising safety concerns die under mysterious circumstances, it raises a chilling question. Is there something much bigger being hidden? While Boeing publicly maintained confidence in the Dreamliner's safety record, behind closed doors, senior FAA officials expressed mounting frustration. In leaked emails from late February 2024, one FAA inspector wrote, "We've seen these red flags before. If we delay again, history may not be so forgiving." These communications never made the headlines. They weren't published in public FAA releases. Yet they reveal a deeper institutional anxiety that continues to grow within US aviation safety bodies. It wasn't just about Boeing's current practices, it was about a growing fear that the system designed to regulate aviation safety was compromised by the very industry it was supposed to oversee. The term regulatory capture started resurfacing in internal FAA discussions. This is when regulatory agencies become so closely aligned with the industries they monitor that they begin acting in the industry's interest more than the public's. In Boeing's case, the intertwined relationships, former Boeing executives joining the FAA, government contracts relying on Boeing aircraft, painted an uncomfortable picture. Meanwhile, a quiet but determined group of engineers within Boeing had started documenting structural inconsistencies they had observed in various aircraft over the years. In internal reports that never left company walls, these engineers detailed what they called stress propagation zones, regions in the fuselage that absorbed more pressure due to subtle misalignments during manufacturing. These zones, according to the reports, were not covered under routine inspections. One of these engineers, speaking anonymously, said, "We have a habit of fixing the surface without digging into the root. I've seen parts passed with microfractures just because they weren't out of spec enough to cause a delay." This echoed another shocking claim made in the whistleblower complaint, that Boeing routinely altered manufacturing tolerances after the fact. Instead of tightening production to meet existing standards, the standards themselves were subtly adjusted to fit flawed components. That's not quality control, the engineer continued. That's reverse engineering safety. It's important to note that these kinds of shifts are hard to track unless external audits are carried out independently, something Boeing's internal oversight often resisted. For years, Boeing lobbied hard to maintain their right to self-certify parts of their aircraft, a controversial arrangement that gave them enormous autonomy in safety assessments. In many cases, according to internal whistleblower files, the company's production certificate department would sign off on inspections using digital records without actual physical verification. The practice was so normalized that junior engineers were taught the process as standard procedure. What does this mean in the real world? Potentially, it means that some Dreamliners were approved without thorough checks on major load-bearing elements. It suggests that some aircraft could carry hidden structural vulnerabilities, fatigue points, improperly cured composites, or gaps filled with adhesives rather than solid joints. At the same time, the economic pressures Boeing faced were compounding. Each delay in Dreamliner production meant not only a financial loss, but also increased costs for compensating airlines, rearranging delivery schedules, and rerouting parts logistics across international facilities. Boeing was bleeding money, reportedly over $20 billion in deferred production costs for the 787 as of early 2024.
If you look back at China economic growth and air travel demand growth, it really took off in the 90s. And sometime in the 2000s, that began to translate into very large jetliner sales numbers.
This isn't just a financial strain, it's a business vulnerability.
Learning how to build it conforming, that is to say, each article is exactly the same as the previous one, that's a major challenge. That's one of the easiest places to stumble.
Boeing's once untouchable status in the aviation industry has been battered. The 737 MAX crisis has already eroded public trust, and the 787 scrutiny came at a time when airlines were reevaluating their fleet priorities. That's where Airbus capitalized. The A350, Airbus's rival to the Dreamliner, had no major scandals attached. While not perfect, the aircraft had built a reputation for reliability, fuel efficiency, and passenger comfort. With Boeing stumbling, many airlines that once waited eagerly for Dreamliners began shifting orders to the A350 or even delaying fleet renewals altogether. Even more worrying for Boeing is the new wave of Chinese aircraft entering the market. The COMAC C919, while not a direct long-haul competitor, is gaining ground. If China's aerospace industry proves itself on narrow-body routes,
this is the continuation of a long-term strategy of Airbus in China.
Others are taking the opportunity to launch their own industries, and we have been too busy fighting each other to pay attention.
It's only a matter of time before they set sights on wide-body territory, a space Boeing can't afford to fumble. Back to Boeing's manufacturing culture, a particularly disturbing issue highlighted by internal audit files involved the use of unauthorized tools. Engineers were reportedly forced to improvise repairs on fuselage segments using non-standard implements due to missing equipment or pressure to meet quotas. One technician noted in a memo, "We're doing aerospace assembly with makeshift braces. It's a ticking bomb." This culture of improvisation, rushed production, and downplayed flaws reflects a deeper problem. It isn't just about hardware, it's about ethics. A system where deadlines override design, where contracts outweigh caution, and where public safety plays second fiddle to stockholder value. The Dreamliner program, once Boeing's pride, has now become a case study in overconfidence. The aircraft was introduced as the future, carbon fiber reinforced, lighter, more fuel efficient, with revolutionary features like better cabin pressure and humidity. But that promise is now at risk of being overshadowed by whispers of deception, neglect, and fatal shortcuts. Insiders say morale within Boeing's engineering division is the lowest it's been in decades. Some describe it as a silent crisis. Others are leaving the company altogether. One former structural engineer posted anonymously, "It's not that we don't care, it's that they don't listen." The FAA, for its part, is caught in a bind. Any move to ground the 787 would send shockwaves globally, straining relations with airlines, triggering lawsuits, and potentially paralyzing transcontinental routes. Yet doing nothing risks being blamed for future tragedies. A former FAA regulator, now retired, summed it up best. "It's like playing Russian roulette with jet engines. The trigger hasn't been pulled yet, but the chamber isn't empty." Meanwhile, public awareness remains disturbingly low. News outlets report in bursts. Stories of whistleblowers and factory mishaps surface and disappear. YouTube videos get traction but are often dismissed as sensational. And through it all, millions continue to board Boeing 787s every month, trusting a system they believe is too advanced to fail. But perhaps that's the biggest illusion in modern aviation, the belief that big companies backed by big governments must always act in our best interest. The Boeing 787 saga reminds us that trust, once broken, must be rebuilt with transparency, not silence. As we look toward the future, one question becomes more urgent than ever. Can Boeing recover not just financially, but morally? Can it regain the trust of its passengers, pilots, engineers, and regulators? The answer lies not in corporate press releases, but in the decisions made over the next few years. Will they prioritize long-term safety over short-term gains? Will they empower whistleblowers instead of silencing them? And most importantly, will they acknowledge that the sky may not forgive mistakes that Earth can afford? Boeing's biggest problem isn't just design flaws or financial losses, it's the erosion of confidence, in the cockpit, on the ground, and in the hearts of travelers. This isn't the end of the Dreamliner's story, but unless drastic action is taken, it might just be the beginning of its reckoning. While Boeing deals with its internal storm, Airbus is soaring. The A321XLR, a single-aisle aircraft with long-haul capability, has already received over 550 orders from more than 25 airlines. It's not just about flying longer. The XLR is more flexible, more efficient, and more reliable than anything Boeing currently offers in the same category. Airlines are using it to launch direct routes between secondary cities that would never fill a 787 or 777. This is the shift Boeing didn't see coming. While they bet on bigger jets and ignored the need for a new midsize aircraft, Airbus built the exact product the post-COVID world demanded, and passengers love it too. The A321XLR offers modern interiors, reduced noise, and lower emissions with the comfort of a wide-body in a narrow-body shell. So what happens now? Boeing is in a corner. Their most advanced aircraft is under scrutiny, their market position is shrinking, and they've yet to offer a real answer to the A321XLR. Experts believe Boeing must 1. Launch a new midsize aircraft fast, something truly modern, not just an upgraded 737. 2. Fix its broken culture of safety and transparency. 3. Rebuild public trust before another crisis happens. Because here's the truth, the Dreamliner isn't just a plane, it's a symbol of what happens when ambition outpaces accountability. A marvel of engineering, yes, but also a cautionary tale in aviation history. Boeing once ruled the skies, but now it's being outmaneuvered by Airbus and haunted by ghosts of its own making. Strategic blind spots, safety lapses, and unanswered whistleblower warnings have shaken confidence in a brand once considered untouchable. And with every 787 flight that takes off, the question lingers, is this engineering excellence in motion or a disaster waiting to happen? One thing is clear, in aviation, silence isn't safe. And when lives are at stake, the truth can't wait for perfect data. It has to come out now, before another jet falls from the sky.